There we go. I knew I was going to take a second on that one. I was sitting there, I was like, I need to throw out this link in a couple of more places. I'm really just kind of throwing this one out there. Hey, how's it going, guys? Talking the war on Disney World. Honestly, I'm doing so many damn things. You know, a whole year goes by and you don't hear about certain things. And I just heard about a thing. Right? So, you know, in short, I was just like, man, I know people that were talking about, like, I missed the salty cracker cut. That meant, like, who's talking about this, right? So, because it oddly hasn't been discussed enough for me to even notice that it's been discussed, I feel like discussing it. Just because of my extreme irritation with the Disney Corporation, and all of the automatons, that are obviously in a cult for anybody looking on the outside, which you can tell by the merit that it is the most important company they need to tell you that they like on their social profiles, especially their dating profiles. Oh, I love Disney! Right? And this is telling you, here's exactly what all of my morals, ethics, values, this is my whole perception of reality. I don't know if it's the entire Disney Corporation, but what we do know is that Disney World operates under the pleasure of the royal crown, not the state of Florida, which also basically means not the country of these United States. And like I said, this is, as far as I know, is just Disney World. Has anybody looked into the rest of the operations of the Disney Corporation? And is Disney World perhaps a lead part of the human trafficking situation? Because of this. Imagine the things that MI6 and CIA can do together in this weird little place. I mean, like, I can go to Disney World. I don't need a passport to go to Disney World, right? It's a management thing, right? It's a management thing. So let me see here real quick. Hey, what's up? Here now, Rad. Good to see you. So today we're doing precisely what it looks like we're doing. I'm gonna do a newsy oriented bit today. So today I'm being newsy and nosy. Kind of funny how news and nose, and being nosy, you know, and knowing things because of your nose. Yeah. Anyway. Like that hasn't been weaved 10 million times. Anyway, I'm just bringing it up for conscious awareness. Besides, there could be a lot of people that show up here because they're like, oh, a guy talking about Disney. And then they realize that I'm associated with the Antichrist. Which I'm actually not. I'm probably very pro-Christ. It's Jesus I'm against. I'm the anti-Jesus. But I'm very pro-Christ. And if you haven't figured that one out yet, fuck you.
New details tonight in the ongoing feud between Governor Ron DeSantis and Walt Disney World. The governor providing an update on an independent audit of the Reedy Creek Improvement District. That's the independent board that governed Disney for decades. It was replaced, you may remember, with the Central Florida Tourism Oversight District. The governor says the new district is working to increase transparency, community engagement, and fiscal responsibility.
The amount of special treatment and exemptions under that old Reedy Creek was unbelievable. I mean, if you're Universal Studios or SeaWorld, you operate under a much different set of laws than what you were operating here with the Disney Corporation. So that's clearly an anomaly.
According to the governor's office, the new tourism board has saved taxpayers more than $18 million already. Some of that money coming from increased business competition, they say, and also from eliminating many of those perks provided to employees under the old district.
You know, one has to wonder what it means for whatever stocks are affected by Disney. Like, certain people make trading decisions based on their understanding of the market, based on their understanding of how X, Y, and Z certain things work. And on the private side, that's all well and good, but there isn't quite this technical explanation for the tax expenses, right? You know, that was never pulled into question. People just figured everything was in working order. It's just one of those aspects of the system that they just shove all the way under the rug, and you just live your life being like, ah, yep, system works. And you just assume that the system works and works the way that you think that it works, right? And you have no idea that the system is malleable by various consented contracts that are permitted within the very bylaws and other operations underneath your constitution. And we're talking about your state constitution, right? So that clip was taken. That was taken 2 days ago, actually. I played the 2 days ago clip. There was another clip I meant to play. That's basically discussing. That's a new development where some of the stuff that just the city of Orlando was doing in its operation with a team that was there as an oversight of the Disney World territory, or whatever the heck is the actual legal standing of the real estate of Disney World. So this was the state forcing the city to operate more appropriately within the Constitution, right? Like, and a government has every right to do this kind of change up of very hard contracts when you find deceit, right? Because, that deceit changes the situation dramatically because it's not supposed to be that way, right? And so you have to operate under a properly well-known agreement. If you don't do that, eventually it gets found out, and it gets found out by somebody who finds their power and asserts it, right? State of Florida came into a higher state of awareness, which then reciprocated in the politics, right? So none of this means Ron DeSantis is a hero. All this means is that Ron DeSantis is not in conflict with the will of the state of Florida, right? Because the zeitgeist of the people there operates like that and leans on him. So, you can go every day saying, I love DeSantis, I hate DeSantis. But also you can see his function in the office, right? This is similar to what I talk about with the mystery school stuff. Those of us in the Blue Flame understand this properly is, Thoth is the name for the seat of Tahuti. And that is a position. It's an office. It's an archonic position, and different kinds of sentient, higher dimensional entities that have lordship over metaphysical functions in our informed field sit on that throne, if you will. It is a kind of a throne, right? Just like there's the executive office of a government, and we function it with different personages in charge. Even a kingship is like that, because that there's different places had different standards by which somebody was a king, and then there was the fact that the position was a kingship position. What's up, PK? What up? Okay, so where was I? I wanted to originally run maybe it was in this one. Right. Okay. You know what? Yeah. Well, here's what I do. This is the way I used to do things, especially back when I was on Revolution Radio, and I was more of like doing a news thing, right? That kind of direct, like telling people about the world in a social situation that like I wasn't interested in conversations at all, and I wasn't reading books. I mean, like I was doing a lot of this stuff. I was reading articles and things. So what we got here? So this is CNBC, last updated March 31st, 2023, and it was first published the day before, by Sarah Whitten. Disney blocks Ron DeSantis Florida power play with a royal family clause. So this is talking about just like, because like this would have been a very mundane conspiracy theory that still would have been either dismissed or at least disregarded. Like, dude, there's a lot of people, you tell them something, oh yeah, that's interesting, and then they don't fucking do a goddamn thing about it. Of course they don't fucking do a goddamn thing about it, right? They've abandoned their position as part of the body politic. You know, they don't feel like they have a due cause to do so. They aren't being charged by anybody in their informed field to cause change, because causing change can hurt, and people are comfortable, and it only when pain is applied can change occur within those who did not grow up with a personal preference for pain, like me, based on my own personal, narrow, perhaps selfish, conceited, just raw little Aries willpower, doing what I wanted to do and suffering all sorts of pains for it, being under this kind of arrested development I put myself in, right? Because it was like deep down inside, I had a different sense of right and wrong, and I said that it's wrong that the world needs X, Y, and Z out of me, when that doesn't feel like that's anything that my heart wants to do, right? And when you grow up, you realize that it's very important that you take care of yourself, because nobody's going to provide things for you forever. And maybe I just lied to myself and told myself I didn't want to have anything to do with that. Hold on, folks. Okay, sorry about that. All right, so we've got some key points. The public feud between Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and Walt Disney Company rages on after Disney invoked a rare legal clause based on the descendants of the British royal family. Before DeSantis could replace the Reedy Creek Improvement District Board of Supervisors that Disney allied panel signed a long-lasting development agreement that drastically limits his control. Florida legislators have balked at the new agreement, vowing to find a legal way to repeal or void the document. However, Disney says all of its conduct was legal. Haha. Yes, meaning, yeah, we're wrong and we got a right to do it. That's what that means when that's your defense, right? Forget about Disney princesses. Mickey Mouse might have just proved who's the real king of Florida. The Walt Disney Company used a legal clause that name checks King Charles III to apparently thwart Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' attempt to strip the company of its self-governance power in the state. For nearly a year, state legislators, encouraged by DeSantis, have sought to exert more control over the company's Florida-based theme parks by passing a bill that would dissolve Disney's special tax district. DeSantis also wanted to rename the area the Central Florida Tourism Oversight District and plant a new board of supervisors to oversee it. The clip that I played earlier was the fulfillment of that, so he succeeded in that. I want to see this real quick here. All right, Disney Republicans want to dissolve Disney's special. Okay, so she wrote this article too. All right, that was on June 1st. Let's see. This is like a side article, so I'm just browsing over. I'm not going to read it. I'm just taking a look to see if there's any important points. Yeah, like for instance, I wanted to know this. The government within the outer limits of Orange and Osceola counties. So those counties are particularly affected by this. So their sovereign relationship with the British Crown has now changed, right? That's why you need to pay attention to these little bits and pieces. You got names of these, I believe are, state senator, right? Let's see. All right. Because something like this is probably more economically significant than people think, because if this begins to start the process of getting more tax revenue into Florida, it means that it's going to rock the price of stock in Disney, because Disney will have less resources from their like gross domestic product or whatever to base that value on, right? Because now people are looking at, oh, you make this amount of money a year, and you've been able to keep all of it. That's kind of a fraud, right? If people are buying stocks under the assumption that the company has been paying certain taxes, and now we find out that they really don't, or the thing is that nobody cared because everybody just wanted to buy stock in Disney, right? And so these prices are fair. Then we have to look back at ourselves, right? We have to look at our own greed, our own what we're willing to tolerate in globalization, really, right? Because you've got this national global corporation, the Disney Corporation, practicing a tax sovereignty, right? I would say that there's something to be said about a nation levying a tax on a publicly traded corporation, which is different than a relationship that the individual or the family unit or a privately owned sole proprietorship, maybe even what you could call an LLC, ought to be with quote unquote taxes, right? And a lot of people will just point at employment numbers and say like, well, if you got this many employees, you gotta tax them or something like that. Okay, you're robbing those employees by that rationale, because that company could be keeping up better with inflation, with less stress when it comes to raises, because the tax pressure is light. They can give that to the employees. I mean, we all know that they don't, but we're still talking about a system that hasn't changed yet, and that's why they don't. Every single company, whether we lived in a time of freedom, serfdom, slavery, or whatever, you reward your labor so it works better for you. This isn't like just the salt mines where the quality of the labor doesn't fucking matter. These are people with educations and talents that are being expressed, and specialties, and experience with jobs that may be more quote unquote complicated, right? I've been working at the florist for 2 years now. I am much better at running around and taking care of the plants today than I was 2 years ago. I'm much more knowledgeable about what a certain house plant is, or lawn, like personal, like house, like home, like outside type of plants and whatever, now than I was 2 years ago, with a different important kind of experiential knowledge set that you don't just get from like, I walked in with my book knowledge, right? But anyway, let's see. So I think that's that. And so let's go back over. Whoops. Wait. Yeah, okay, so let's get back to this. Okay, so until recently, there had been no major public discussions about dissolving Disney's long-established special district, which it's occupied for 55 years, leading DeSantis' critics to question its timing and the speed at which the governor acted against the company. Right, so that's acting like they're trying to say it's a political game, right? That's just part of the flavor that CNBC is doing. Right? Like, that's not relevant to the conspiracy we're looking for. Obviously, they're going to talk about that, whether, because this is a economics and politics, right? It just sounds like it's just economics, but it's really politics because it's all television and advertisers that also control the politicians. Let's see. Phone outside, clean up service flies, not that. Okay, cool. All right. Let's see. We're going to play this when I'm done reading. Widely seen as a contender for the 2024 Republican presidential nomination, DeSantis became locked in a bitter and public feud with the entertainment giant over the company's denouncement of Florida's HB 1557 laws early last year, which dubbed by critics as the "Don't Say Gay" bill. Right. There's a lot of hyperbole about what that bill actually meant, and and because that's a politically charged bill, but also there's something important about that because of the way people that are being forced to deal with it against their consent because of the way things are currently done. This law comes in to say, hold on a second, what about people that don't want to do what you're doing, right? And that was at the essence of what the bill was claiming to remedy, right? So Republican state rep Randy Fine told CNBC Squawk Box on stable the bill wasn't retaliatory. All right, so anyway, let's see. Quiet for months, it seems the House of Mouse had been hatching a plan to retain its control over the land within the outer limits of Orange and Osceola counties. Right, yep, which we talked about in the other one. On Feb 8th, the day before Florida House voted, DeSantis in charge. I'm trying to see if there's any little juicy leading hints in here because I don't want to make a long stream out of this. As part of a 30-year development agreement, Disney no longer needs broad approval to build high-density projects or buildings of any height and can sell or assign development rights. Now, that kind of thing, I'm a bit of an Ayn Randian. I actually I would want to kind of keep most of that the way that it is, because I want to be able to see all sorts of different persons that are not governments building neat stuff, right? Obviously, somebody who's an environmentalist gets involved, and we have, people got to get organized, to part of being, a shared voice and telling someone else who is being an inconsiderate neighbor, hey, don't do this, don't do that. Is there sometimes foolishness which causes government to always end up being evil? Unfortunately, yes. But at the same time, all of us want to work within a system that is protectively effective, because otherwise we're all going to be like living Hatfields and McCoys. And honestly, I think that, look, you can say, oh, well, it's a psyop is the reason why they're, like, broski, don't say my neighbor's having a psyop. I just got into an ugly fucking argument with my fucking neighbor who ain't got dick to do with anything. If it's a psyop, fine. Look, people are having conversations and making choices and being persuaded. You and me alike. So, whether I'm ready for anarchy or not, I can't find anybody that I want to live around and I'd rather live around people. And society's not that bad. And there's a way of doing this and it being fine. Right? Otherwise, we're working on it. I'm not against it, but people ain't there yet. So anyway, that's my Ayn Randian thoughts on that particular statement. Anyway, it also bans the board from using Disney's name or any of its characters. Interesting. It also bans the board from using Disney's name or any of its characters. What does it mean to you? What were they doing with the use of the name and characters? Was the board just, was it like it was flying the Disney flag next to the American flag and thus like acting like, Disney's a government here, right? That I can understand. Okay. March 30th, 2023, Brandenburg, Broadwin. King Charles III stands next to a cake made especially for his visit in Broadwin Eco-Village during the royal visit to Germany. Okay. So, like, it's this guy. We all know this guy, King Charles. He's the one in charge of that property. You know, he's kind of this. Maybe he's the CEO of that property. He may not. Disney may own Disney's affairs, but he's the property manager. Okay. Anyway, the agreement includes a royal clause that dates back to 1692 in Britain and would extend its term limit for decades. So we kept this law on the books that is before. Was Florida was a proper colony then, right? So, look, we look back at history, like, there's a reason why there's been this conspiracy against nationalism, and it is because of the problems a country can have when it's trying to be unified from various more independent places, such as a state, as its own sovereign kind of government, right? And then it has its relationships with whom it prior released itself from, the supporting empire, as it had matured, right? Because like you look at the idea of the United States compared to all the other countries in the world, that's what we are, right? It's just like we didn't come here and manage the Native Americans, right? We pushed the Native Americans out, and then we came to occupy. That's not what the British did in India, right? In India, the British were pretty much managers, right? And then there they were, the Indian people. It wasn't a replacement, and their nation wasn't declining as such. This is part of one of the little lies of history, is that like the native peoples, when we discovered the Americas, all their cities had already basically had complete collapse at that point. They hadn't had development in a long time. They didn't have fucking navy, right? And when I say we, it's just like, it's we nothing, right? Because I'm not taking fucking ownership for shit that I didn't do. Maybe my ancestors did some shit, right? When you think about things like the conquistadors, et cetera, right? But, you know, this comes with that entire ownership of all the guilt of white people in the West. So anyway, yeah, so fucking 1690 fucking 2. And we allegedly have certain laws about sovereignty and our issues with the British, and yet we kept this. We kept this during the American Revolution? And we kept this through the American Civil War. I mean, let's not forget the War of 1812. Ridiculous, right? So, the declaration shall continue in effect until 21 years after the death of the last survivor of the descendants of King Charles III, King of England, living as of the date of this declaration. So, it's 21 years after the death of the last survivor of the descendants of King Charles III. So, it's not going to be like 21 years after King Charles dies, because, the royal family is still having children. They're still making babies over there. All right? King Charles's bloodline is fine. The document said this kind of clause is most often used in the UK, typically when it comes to trusts, and provides a buffer against perpetuities. So as long as one of those grandchildren makes it 80, this clause would be there for 100 years, explained Robert Lord, senior advisor on tax policy at progressive group Patriotic Millionaires. All right, so they got this guy's fucking opinion. Why this guy? Why is his name the Robber of Lords? And a lord is a title like a senator in British Parliament, and a lord is an archon. But anyway, DeSantis replaced all of the Disney allied board members with 5 Republicans on February 27th. It was only then that Disney's new binding agreement was discovered. The clause was so obscure that several journalists who attended the February 8th meeting apparently didn't pick up on it. This essentially makes Disney the government. Ron Petty, one of the new board members appointed to the CFTOD by DeSantis, said at the February 27th meeting, this board loses, for practical purposes, the majority of its ability to do anything beyond maintain the roads and maintain basic infrastructure. Representatives for DeSantis did not immediately respond to CNBC's request for comment. Florida's Attorney General requested communications records regarding the February 8th meeting, according to a tweet from a Washington Post reporter. Florida legislators have balked at the new agreement, vowing to find a legal way to repeal or void the document. However, Disney says all of its conduct was legal. All agreements signed between Disney and the district were appropriate and were discussed and approved in open, notice public forums in compliance with Florida government in the Sunshine Law, the Walt Disney World Resort said in a statement. Right, exactly. So what there's, which is basically for them to say that Ron DeSantis needs to appeal to a different level of jurisdiction, right? He has to get a higher level of agreement, right? It may be something that requires legislative action, as per the court finding things to be proper on the side of the defendant. All right. So the district in question is the Reedy Creek Improvement District, which was established in 1967. And 30 years ago would have been the 90s or something. So it wasn't that as long ago as the establishment of Reedy Creek. It was created by the Florida legislature so Disney could develop the infrastructure for Walt Disney World at no cost to Florida taxpayers. Right, so there's that agreement from 30 years ago, but 1967, Reedy Creek was invented for Disney. The arrangement has allowed Disney to build theme parks, hotels, and other tourist experiences, Freudian slip, within Reedy Creek District with little to no oversight. The company also became the largest employer of Florida residents and helped the Orlando area become one of the largest hubs for tourism in the U.S. And Disney allies came to the February 8th meeting prepared to defend its special status in the state. Listen, I believe Florida doesn't need Disney. This is great what Disney provides, but Florida can adjust itself to compensate for lost revenue. It has to do it carefully because they don't want to just kill grandma when the money just fucking bottoms out on grandma's pills or nursing home staff, etc. We all know all the stuff that Florida is for. But dude, you can transcend a brand name for one thing. You could just make your own independent park. And if you know what you're doing, because you're a wizard in your own right, and you can function starting with less capital, you'll get people excited and into it. You'll have competitors, which is also healthy for people. The whole 9 yards. There's plenty of things to and for Florida to be productive. But anyway, it's amazing how Disney World you never hear about Disney World suffering hurricanes much, right? A hurricane will hit Disney World and it ain't gonna do like nobody's like, oh man, we closed Disney World because like we have to replace the tower on the Magic Kingdom. Like that doesn't happen. Everything's pretty damn solid over there. So the truth is that probably because like here's a rare case where this loophole in regulations is probably of benefit because everybody's pretty like people like I could go buy a ticket, go have my experience at Disney, come home and freaking I can like make a Reddit account and talk about it and I could post it on Facebook. I can get the word out, right? I can get the word out in my own independent publishing voice. Like I'm getting the word out about things on this channel all the time. And so these structures are pretty darn solid. You know, they're probably very well pampered, right? With inspection checks and everything else. And granted, they can do all of that because they don't have to spend the extra money on taxes. And the question is the business model of Disney a parasite on the people, really? You know, does Disney serve the people as a Disney World with all of the employers and everything else? Because certainly there can be a thing or two to complain about, but is it that Disney is right to not pay taxes because nobody should be paying taxes? And why are we saying a corporation would have the same rights as you and me, right? But then again, how do you and me achieve further without making a company? So that way we can do a thing that brings us money for our hard work and have it owned in our name as a system. You get it, right? So these are the hard questions that if we're going to walk a path of anarchy, if we're going to walk a path of I don't know, of being just a family unit or whatever, you know, how does that actually factually function, right? So, according to the minutes, board president Larry Hames asked if there was any other business to discuss before closing the meeting, and he said Randy Creek's top administrator, John Class, who's been Reedy Creek's top administrator since 2016, then quoted famed basketball coach John Wooden, things turn out best for the people who make the best of the way things turn out. Yeah, sure. That's wisdom 101. Sure, why not? Anyway, so that Disney panel signed as long-listed development agreement drastically limits his control. An earlier version misstated the title of the board. Okay, anyway. All right. So then I said I was going to play this up here.
DeSantis, that essentially was going to oversee Walt Disney World's government services, apparently may not have any actual real power. That is because the day before the new board took over, Disney pushed through quiet measures that would heavily limit the new board's authority for at least the next few decades, thus, I guess, giving the power back to Disney. Joining us now is Puck News founding partner Matt Bellany. Matt, to this board issue, Disney's lawyers, if this works, they need all raises because they were smart and got ahead of the state of Florida. Do you really think, though, it kind of neutered DeSantis' power?
Well, that's certainly what Disney thinks, and I know that they have a very robust legal department that reviewed this very carefully, and they were conspicuously quiet over the past few months, and now we see why. They have essentially inserted language in this contract that prevents this Ron DeSantis board from essentially doing anything that would impact Disney when it runs this Reedy Creek district. And that is in direct contrast to what DeSantis wanted to do in putting all of his cronies on this board. They essentially have their hands cuffed by Disney. And if this works, it is quite the move by Disney.
Yeah, listen, I'm not the great poet, philosopher Forrest Gump, but to quote him, I'm not a smart man. But I will say this, Matt, I'm smart enough to know I don't think DeSantis is going to take this sitting down.
Okay, hold on a second. Because I find it incredibly synchronistic because this is a last year's article, I'm friends with Project Cheney, with the Secret Society of Good Guys and stuff, and they just did a major Forrest Gump live stream. So I find it synchronistic that this old clip, this guy happens like when. These people, I hate it when they effing do that too. It's just like they kind of throw this programmed, relatable quote for boomers, right? They do this all the effing time, right? It's like when Barack Obama was just like, I'm gonna do my Jedi mind meld on you or whatever the fuck, where he deliberately mashed up Star Wars and Star Trek superpowers. This is part of the neurolinguistic programming. So, and he's sitting there and he's appealing to the imbecile level of his audience, right? And other people that like Forrest Gump, and appealing to the wisdom of this imbecile.
Oh, certainly not. And they're already saying in Florida that they're going to hire lawyers, coincidentally, or perhaps not, lawyers that have ties to Ron DeSantis to try to undo this or challenge it or at least figure out how to work with this. So we are gearing up for a pretty big legal fight here. And you've got to be an expert on civics and how these public-private partnerships work in order to figure this stuff out, because Disney had an extraordinary arrangement in Florida. DeSantis tried to take it away.
Yeah, civics. Like, civics is not supposed to be a master class in a thing. Civics is supposed to be our basic relationship with the organization of man locally. This is just you and your fucking neighbors, and the way you freaking agree that that you have people that protect you and assert violence, and this whole thing, right? Government, good old slavery, good old mind control, right? So civics is how we're supposed to get the rule book for dealing with mind control. We're supposed to have that. So that way the mind control is more about mental discipline than it is about manipulation. Because I think that we need to understand, because the existence of government is evidence the existence of government is the potential for mind control. But its original intention was mental discipline. because of its Saturnian roots. And Saturn is not the bad guy. He's just your sensei, and you're just crying on the ground like a bitch when he's trying to make you strong. Tough love.
And Disney, by doing this, is trying to hold on to that control over its central district there.
You know, let's talk about the other story, Bob Iger. Okay, Bob Iger, kind of comes across like Uncle Bob sometimes, right? Like, hey, he's always smiling, he's talking to Julia Borston. Okay, this guy whacks Bob Chapek as CEO, comes back in. Now he's gotten rid of the Marvel CEO. I don't know if that's a good move or not. Maybe you have an opinion, Matt, because Marvel's a big-time moneymaker. I mean, Bob Iger's like the John Wick of CEOs.
All right, so here he's spinning another lie. Marvel is not making that money anymore. The box office is tanked. Right, like as far as the films are concerned. But the brand has its strong associations because a bad movie now gets to be that bullshit 2-hour commercial for the toy, right? Now the terrible movie is all about the action figure. It's all about the t-shirt. It's all about the makeup accessories, right? These are your Disney princesses. They're all Stepford wives. Fuck them.
Well, that's mixing your metaphors here. That's not a Disney franchise. He's more like the Tony Stark of Disney.
McDonald's.
Yeah. Iger, this is very much in his wheelhouse here because he would argue that Ike fought first.
Okay, his name's Matt Baloney, and baloney is what we understand means that you are full of shit. It means you're a liar. Because a bologna is kind of like sausage or whatever. It's made out of all that like after parts of the, as a processed meat. It's like shit meat.
First here. Ike Perlmutter was the secret brain behind this proxy fight that Disney had been having for a few months with this investor, Nelson Peltz, who is a close personal friend of Ike Perlmutter. And Peltz had been advocating for a board seat and advocating for cost cuts and all of these things and really a thorn in Iger's side. And they did a lot to placate him, but the message was very clear. Frankly, Ike Perlmutter has not had a major role at Marvel or Disney in 7 or 8 years now. They really took him out of the picture and sided with Kevin Feige, who has been the creative engine at Marvel. But Ike is still a major shareholder. So they had to deal with him. And Iger has never really gotten along with him. This is really, this is just him saying, you come after me, you're out.
All right. So then, that's the discussion of politics on the inside baseball side, because of course all that's going to affect the park, right? If they want to have Marvel, Marvel has to continue to hold people's interest. So therefore when they see the investment in Marvel themes at Disney World, they know how much money Disney World is going to make because of the Marvel stuff in there. Just like how Disney World had to make a whole Star Wars section of their theme park, and therefore doing that, right? And this is why there's an effing multiverse, because like Disney World brings a multiverse to life, because you go to one place and you've got Disney princess stuff going back to the dawn of fucking Disney, and including all of its cultural appropriations of German fairy tales. And then you move ahead and you've got Star Wars over here, you got Marvel over here, you've got all sorts of different stuff all over the place down in Disney World. Pirates of the Caribbean upgraded. So Pirates of the Caribbean, I think that's like a whole treasure island area. Like there's a whole themed area where Pirates of the Caribbean is that makes it all make sense. Plus, I think they upgraded that area to be, I think they built the whole area around Pirates of the Caribbean to be Tortuga now because of the enormous popularity of the franchise and the cosplay. So anyway, okay, so that article is out of the way. I wanted to do a comparative article, and so I found BBC Max Matza. Max Matza? Matzo ball soup? Come on, please stop. Just stop. But anyway. A board picked by Florida's governor to oversee Disney's Orlando theme park says it has been neutered by a last-minute contract with a royal clause. Disney ran the district for over half a century until Florida legislators punished the conglomerate for slamming state laws regulating sex education. But the new board says its authority has been bypassed by restrictive covenants that cite King Charles III. Covenants! These are covenants! Oh, my God. A covenant? Hold on a second here. Dog and Pony Show to reinforce the power and relevance of the contract of the written word. X signed on the dotted line. Hands are tied. The programming is replete in movies too, where people are forced to sign contract or something as if that is the end-all be-all that binds them forever. It's a powerful spell. Right. I mean, there's these things can change. These things can change. You know, they can make change. You can change them in a civil fashion if you can prove a certain level of deceit or breach of trust, right? Those things are always, there's always a good faith side to it, right? Because if this was all done in public, right, then it's going to reflect the literal, it will reflect the narrative, and that'll be the side of it that is, it may be an illusion, but it is also the real illusion, if you catch my drift, right? Like, we all know the fraud of the U.S. Constitution's standing since the Civil War for a long time. But because that illusion was also the official illusion, they still had to play ball for you and me. As long as we just didn't use that to rock the boat, to perform the more radical change that is civilly allotted to us through our discourse of being able to institute organizations to come in and establish a government temporarily, right? The dynamics between, you know, the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists and the Whigs and the Anti-Masons and the Republicans, the Bull Moose part, all of these different guys, right? Anyway, the Republican-aligned board is hiring lawyers to settle the matter. We're going to have to deal with it and correct it, board member Brian Ongst said on Wednesday at a public meeting. He called Disney's actions a naked attempt to circumvent the will of the voters and the will of the Florida legislator. In a brief statement, Disney said all agreements signed between Disney and the district were appropriate and were discussed and approved in open, noticed public forums. The previous Disney-controlled board was known as the Reedy Creek Improvement District, and it ran the sprawling theme park resort in Central Florida, right? And remember, when they talk about this stuff being public and known, what they mean is that this is your fault because the press was not interested in telling you very much about this, right? There's a bare minimum that the press does as a civic obligation that when a government passes a law like this or something like that, that it's published somewhere, that it's posted somewhere, right? Just as it has to be openly published, posted in public records, in various archives for your government. Okay? It's all the same kind of thing. And the problem is that there's so many weird shit like this leftover laws that is part of the infrastructure that protects the conspiracy and the illusion that they act like they got a right to our ignorance. And I don't know, perhaps they do, which is why I choose to not be ignorant, so that way I have nothing that they have a right over. It approved the now disputed agreement on the 8th of February, the day before the state's Republican-led legislature voted to empower the governor to pick his own board to oversee the 27,000 acres. The newly created Central Florida Tourism Oversight District says the binding agreement passed last month by the previous board hands Disney total power over development of the area. The declaration is valid until 21 years after the death of King England. We already said that, right? According to the document. Such so-called royal lives clauses have been inserted into legal documentation since the late 17th century, and they are still found in some contracts in the UK, though rarely in the US. The 151-page Florida agreement also states that no fanciful characters owned by Disney, including Mickey Mouse, can be used by the board. The use of the name Disney is also banned. Right, so no invocation of the company in which they have jurisdiction over, right? So this is probably to prevent House of Mouse mind control, effectively, which is right and proper in order for you to establish your authority over it, which is the whole point of being government. This is the discipline of the mind. Mickey Mouse has had a very undisciplined mind for a very long time. The will of this board of directors has been run amok for forever. The new board's chairman, Martin Garcia, told an NBC affiliate that they may have to challenge the agreement in protracted litigation. Disney made a political enemy of the governor after criticizing the state's Parental Rights in Education Act signed by Mr. DeSantis last April. Right, this is, got to remember, all this got sprung up because Disney decided they wanted to die on this hill, and now the world is much more consciously aware of this nonsense, which just doesn't seem fucking right unless you're some sort of, unless you're a Disney, like, a Disney over America kind of thing, which a lot of people on the left are. Remember, no borders, no walls, no USA at all, right? They're saying that for the USA, and they won't dare say that about what other countries should do, because, you know, if I heard someone saying that that their country was going to try and make my country do what they're doing, in the sense of saying having no borders, no walls, and no country at all, that sounds like a declaration of war. Understand that. The measure bans instruction on sexual orientation and gender identity for pupils age 9 and under. Supporters of the bill said it protects children from inappropriate content. Opponents dubbed the legislation "Don't Say Gay" and say it stigmatizes LGBT youth. Right, because they believe they have scientifically proven that you can determine someone's sexuality before 9 and then bring the child to a awareness that we have figured out that that's what you are. This is society imposing itself upon the child. That's what that is. The culture war between Mr. DeSantis and Disney has helped elevate governors' profiles as potential 2024 Republican presidential candidates. All right, and then let's see here. We got this is like about a minute. Let's see what they say.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is your governor speaking. We're not going to let this state descend into some type of woke dumpster fire. I'm Ron DeSantis. Woke ideology. It's woke ideology. Woke.
All right, BBC wants to just play his political platform. All right. See, I was 5 things to know about Ron DeSantis. So BBC is actually helping Ron DeSantis in this respect, because they could have played a BBC News article. That's what I thought this probably was, like a clip like the other one, which, maybe makes Ron look good. That's fine, but at least it's still like a news clip with a certain kind of discussion. Ron's being asked a question. That's not what's happening. So I'm not going to entertain the next 60 seconds of this for you. Ron DeSantis doesn't get free advertising from me. Whoops, okay. And then I wanted to do Sears February 24, right? DeSantis calls takeover of Disney government a success despite worker exodus and litigation. So let's. They're running. I think this is a live feed of Face the Nation. But anyway, no, get off my screen. I don't want to see BB. Get BB off my screen. I don't like BB. All right. Miami, almost a year after state lawmakers passed a law giving Florida's governor control over Walt Disney World's governing district, Ron DeSantis on Thursday called the takeover a success despite an exodus of workers, ongoing litigation, and scandals surrounding one of his appointees. Right, exactly. We have to look at what was established in 1692, right? They said that it was 1692 in the article when Florida was a colony, that this relationship with the state exists, and that's where it jumps back to, right? This can also tell us the various interests of the secret societies that were working through the British Empire, what some of them needed in certain respects, right? There's all these different ways in which the City of London does what it does in the trifecta of the Western global cabal. DeSantis made a victory lap of sorts during a news conference at Disney World, touting a first-round victory in litigation with Disney over who controls the district, which had been led by Disney supporters for more than 5 decades until the takeover last year. The governor also said the takeover of the district with his appointees had created more transparency and accountability, reduced the tax burden for Disney and outside shops. It didn't reduce the tax burden. It eliminated it altogether. Outside shops and restaurants at the theme park resort, and made the awarding of contracts by the district more competitive. The district provides municipal services such as firefighting, planning, and mosquito control, among other things. That is a win, not just for people in this region, but the state of Florida, DeSantis said. DeSantis' visit to Disney World came 3 weeks after a federal judge in Tallahassee dismissed Disney's free speech lawsuit against the governor and his appointees to the board of the governing districts. Disney is appealing the ruling. Disney had argued that the last legislation that transferred control of the district from Disney supporters to DeSantis appointees was in retaliation for the company publicly opposing the state's Don't Say Gay law. The 2022 law banned classroom lessons on sexual orientation and gender identity in early grades, and was championed by DeSantis, who had used Disney as a punching bag in speeches on the campaign trail until he suspended his campaign for the 2024 presidential nomination earlier this year. Separate lawsuit over who controls the district is still pending in state court in Orlando. Before control of the district changed hands early last year. The Disney supporters on its board signed agreements with Disney, shifting control over design and construction at Disney World to the company. The new DeSantis appointees claim the 11th hour deals neutered their powers, and the district sued the company in state court to have the contracts voided. Disney has filed counterclaim that include asking the state court to declare the agreements valid and enforceable. Since the takeover, around 50 of the district's 370 employees have departed, raising questions about how well the district is able to operate with so many vacancies. Well, that's very, very easy. You put up a hiring sign, and you get some. What's up, Slick? let me check over here. Okay, so the program replete. Okay. Yeah, as in they helped found Walt Disney and set up their little Orlando world. Right. They may have founded Disney, like, because you remember, Disney started in California, and Disneyland started in California. Teenage Mutant Dasein Turtles. Yeah. And Cowabunga. Dasein Welt. Yeah, Dasein. Dasein is kind of an anagram of Disney, isn't it? Dasein. Welt Daseinai. That works. Okay, where was I? Many of the departing workers complained that the district has become politicized, that politically connected associates have been hired or awarded contracts, and the backgrounds of the 5 DeSantis appointees have been distracting. Distracting, eh? That sounds interesting, right? Politicize, which simply means that there's a cultural shift occurring. There's a cultural shift occurring, and you're having a hard time realizing that there aren't necessarily as many of you and your ideology as there once was. And there naturally becomes political tension as persons become more emboldened to be capable of expressing themselves. You know, almost like we were a free country or something. One of the appointees, Bridget Ziegler, a co-founder of Moms for Liberty, has been called out for hypocrisy after admitting to a sexual relationship with her husband and another woman, even though the Zieglers very publicly have fought against LGBTQ plus rights. Oh my God! See, here we go. Oh, this is priceless. This is priceless as a misdirection. Okay. Here we have the issue of 3 consenting adults having a good time versus one political ideology's insistence on grooming children, persons without agency, persons of youth and innocence, in a world of many discoveries, very important to discover yourself, involving discovering your meat suit, but also knowing that you manifested this meat suit for a reason, for a purpose. And maybe we ought not lose our memories when we reincarnate, but if we could all learn by our parents to have fun in the remembering process, I think we're all going to have a much better time in our next incarnation, don't you think? So anyway, and then of course fought hard against LGBTQ plus rights, meaning that they found specific issues that she had a problem with, despite having a bisexual fetish. So they're trying to say that her beliefs and values are dismissed because she is guilty of a bisexual fetish. That's how sick these people are. That's how sick these people are, right? So these are the kind of people, they want to take away, the voice, like a lot of people that I disagree with and find fault with, right? Like Dave Rubin's gay. Very pro-right wing. They want to take away his voice. I mean, like, you're married to a man. How you have no right to speak out against LGBTQ plus, right? And then, so people that do have a right to speak out against LGBTQ plus, they just simply don't have a right because they aren't LGBTQ plus. But then you don't have a right to do it because you're an LGBTQ plus, but you're against X, Y, and Z issues within the community, right? Like, and they don't understand that. And that's their cognitive dissonance. I want to put all these motherfuckers in the octagon with Cheney. Cheney! Anyway, her husband, Christian Ziegler, recently was ousted as the head of the Republican Party of Florida, and the Sarasota Police Department has asked prosecutors to charge him with illegally video recording the sexual encounter he had with the woman. All right, so and that's CBS News and their ability to fail. Okay, so that is that's all I'm going to do with this this nonsense for today. Let me get that out of there. Thank you. Boom. There I am. I will. I'll be back in some short period of time. I don't know when. With more Heidegger, obviously. This was just kind of an off-the-cuff thing. Me enjoying my Sunday and reacting to old news and being, you know what? I got an itch to do a thing about this. So I did a thing about this. And hopefully we will figure out a little bit more about how all of this system works and all of the problems that are really there within it. So Adolph's paintings have telling shadows echoed in Disneyland's skyline designs. Interesting. Dragon families were the front-facing side of the kiddie drag show that baited Denver hard. Provocation Artcraft. What dragon families? Slick, you do know that I am a dragon, yes? There are evil dragons and there are good dragons, my friend. All right, guys. I will catch you guys later. Thank you so much for hanging out on this live stream. You can hit me up for any kind of work that you want to do together, invitations onto your shows or whatever, or tap me for a tarot and rune reading, Zerilath at yahoo.com, Zerilath at yahoo.com. Take care. Have a good one.